at allpointstv.com, and we are glad that those of you who are there at this point are here, and we know others will be joining us later on. Some of you pick us up at the times that you're getting off your job and finishing your chores. If you're doing what I'm doing, washing the dishes and things around the house that have to be done, and whatever the reason is, we're glad you're here now and hope you will enjoy the program and learn something from it. We just had a ruling of the Supreme Court, and I'm real glad that I don't think they had a choice in the matter, but I'm glad to know that the Supreme Court has stood up again for voting rights in this country. And it's amazing to me that we're still talking about voting rights in the country after all the legislation has been passed, and then you have the civil rights amendments, one of which is the voting rights in the 14th Amendment. I'm sorry, in the 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870. And so this is not a new issue about the sanctity of the right to vote, because if you cannot register your vote for or against your representatives, then you cannot claim that you are well, they keep saying democratic government, but really you can't claim that you are a Republican form of government under the rule of law, because what you have to be able to do if you're going to have a voice in the government, you got to have a way to have your voice heard, and there's no other way to do it other than through revolution than through the voting process. And if you cannot remove officials that go they make all these promises, then they go in there and do what they want to do. If you cannot respond to that, then what you have is a tyrannical state, and you have authoritarianism. And so the right to vote is sanctimonious to the process of democracy, and also to the Republican form of government this country was guaranteed to have in Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. So this was a great ruling by the court. I wonder I didn't get the number of judges on one side and on the other side. John, did you know what the vote was on the Supreme Court?
From what I understand, it was unanimous.
Oh,
from
my
what
goodness.
I understand. So,
that's great.
Yeah, because that's what I said. I mean, I tried to find out where it said, but it just said one reading I did. So quick, people can correct me when I'm wrong, but that's why I try to make sure that it came across as a unanimous vote.
Yeah, and I would think that would be unanimous. I can't see a member of the Supreme Court. I mean, what would they be looking at?
I can't see how the left, who wants to enfranchise people so they can vote in elections, who have no legal standing as U.S. citizens, they want to extend it to them, but they want to eliminate who we can vote for. I don't see how they can state that. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah, John, that's a major point you made.
Yeah, they want to enfranchise people who have no interest, who had no enfranchisement in this whatsoever. They want to bring them on, and they want to let them totally disregard the fact that they are not U.S. citizens, vote in our elections, which is going to definitely have an outcome on our population. But it's now they want to limit who can actually be running for office.
Yeah, I don't think I was searching through my mind as you were talking. I was trying to find out, going back in my memory to think through the history of the country, have we had an attempt to take a candidate off of the national ballot before? I don't think I've ever come across that.
They had Supreme, from my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, you're a scholar on this. I would think that back years ago when we had socialists running, socialists were allowed to be on the ballots.
Right.
I mean, so even when we're so deathly opposed and fearful of the concept of communism, we should be, and socialism, which we also should be, we allow them to run and be on the ballots.
Sure.
I mean, very few people voted for him, but they're allowed to be on the ballots. Now they're trying to basically, now they're calling, did you hear about this thing about the rise of Christian nationalism?
Yeah, I heard that. Yes.
So another attempt to demonize a group of people who actually have some morality or go to church. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. John, that is something to think about. I know that when Eugene Debs was running, for president. He was a known socialist, but there was no one saying that his rights to uh, run on whatever ballot he wanted to run on, whatever ticket he wanted to run on, uh, could not happen in a country that stands for, or at least it says it stands for, uh, freedom, justice, equality, liberty, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is appalling that some 32 states, John, there were 32 states or more that joined in this mockery of the laws in this country, the Constitution in this country. It's a mockery that we're looking at. That a person can, and this is the other side of it, a person can be thrown off the ballot if they get away with this, if he's accused of a crime. Donald Trump has not been charged with any of the things that they're talking about, because all the ones on January the 6th, every last one of them, they thought they had a better case of this Jacob Chansley, the one that was wearing the horns that day. They thought they had a very good case to make that we'll use this guy as a kind of crazes that showed up on January the 6th. And they would push the envelope of this was an insurrection. But then when Tucker Carlson did a program on it and showed the videos of those persons inside of the Capitol building, and when you saw those persons walking through there being escorted, pretty much by the security team, they were taking Jacob Chansley around trying to unlock the doors for him. There were some doors that were locked. It was a sightseeing tour.
You know what, though? I'm going to interject here. It just shows you can't trust cops.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. I mean, I think the cops
they
were told
waved
to
them
do
in
that.
too.
Yeah, they waved them in. So that's entrapment, and cops get away with entrapment at all levels. I mean, I know they're like Capitol Police, or they're not Capitol Police. They're actually Secret Service, SS men. And people that to the kind of that parallel doesn't get met with kind of reaction it should. We got Secret Service people. Secret Service. Think about it. We're supposed to have transparency of government. We got agents who can be around being secretive. Yeah. Okay. Everything they do is secretive, because let's face it, if we saw what they did to it all in the open, there'd be an open call for rebellion more. So
yeah. John, this is we're going into some places that this country fought, and this is the inception of the country. We fought against the space we're trying to go back into. We fought against that space, and we've got to change course in this country. We cannot have 30 some odd states. There's only 50 states. You have 30 some odd states trying to deballotize a candidate for president. We're not talking about, even if you're talking about a lower level official, it would be egregious. But to talk about this is the president of the United States, this is the single office holder. They're everyone in the country who votes for. We can't vote across state lines for senators. We can't vote across district lines for persons that are in the House. There are lines drawn so that the voters that are voting for members of the House of Representatives, those are district votes, so as to put the person in the House, the people's body, closer to the people that they represent. The idea of being accountability, of course. And in the state level, the senators, originally before 1913, the passage of the 17th Amendment, designed to be the representatives. This was the intent of the great framers of this country, designed to be the eyes, the ears, and the voice of the states in the national legislative body, and to make sure that the state's voice was recognized. And then the president, the single office holder of the executive branch of government, they had put that to bed by the time they got to all of that was put to bed by the time they got to Federalist Paper number 78. 78, because in 78, what they finally got around to, they finally got around to dealing with the judicial branch of government. And in 79, I think it is, in Federalist Papers 79. I think it is there. It's either 78 or 79, where the intent stated by, Alexander Hamilton. In fact, from 76 until the end of it is Hamilton, Hamilton, Hamilton until the end of the 80, until the 85th and last of the Federalist Papers, with the last two of them, 84 and 85, being a summation of what had already been covered by the other papers. And now what Hamilton is doing a summation of all the things that they have done through explaining to people what the Constitution intends. In 78, and I think it's 78, but it could be 79. I know it's either one of those two, where Hamilton was making it appear. There are a lot of things going on in 78. Hamilton is making it appear that number one is only one. I noticed in having read that back in the day. We're talking about some decades ago, but I still can recall it because I still recall that in those papers, they tried to act like there was one voice, that Publius was a reference to a single person. And I noticed in the last papers, it makes it appear where they say what I've been trying to say is if there's a single person that has been writing those papers. It wasn't identified who they were, and because it would have prejudiced probably the way in which it was looked at by people that might have known them, and not some people. You know how people are; they have different likes and dislikes. Personality can get into it, and they want to be anonymous so they can, in fact, have the ideas ferreted out about what it is that they're trying to do by getting the Constitution of the United States ratified, the 7 Articles of the Constitution ratified. And I think they did a great job. I have a lot of respect for what they did there, but they would be horrified if the framers came back here today and see we're having discussions about disenfranchising the voters so they cannot cannot vote upon their office holders.
I mean, the thing is, we're talking to people who are either, most people out there are so ignorant of, don't have the knowledge that you have about what. But also, when you look at a historic perspective, again, I bring up the point. Even when we had a total disagreement with the way of life these people were advocating, the candidates for those parties, they're candidates for those political parties that were advocating for communism, for socialism, were allowed on the ballot. I mean, there's some attempts to, throw roadblocks in the way, but they were ultimately allowed to run. Okay.
Yeah.
When you got people who are now demonizing a huge portion of the population and want to make them look like to the unsuspecting, uninitiated, uneducated masses, that these people are somebody who should be enemies. That's scary.
Yeah, that is scary. John, when they had Debs running, I don't think Debs was left for Bernie Sanders. And everyone knew he was bordering upon an anarchist. Debs was very radical, but should he have had the right to run if he had met the requirements for running for the presidential office? Of course. You can't say because you disagree with somebody that you can therefore take away their rights.
It's actually what the left is doing. They're trying to do.
The left has always done that. And this disenfranchisement issue, I don't think has ever been on this level, but yeah, they have a history of that. But to say that you're going to take a contender for the office of the presidency, the only office holder that the whole citizenry votes for, that's a unique office, the presidency of the United States. And when I look at through the Federalist Papers to see the discussions about it, when they got around to putting to bed how the executive branch would in fact be featured in the Constitution, would it be a committee of persons in the Article 2, or would there be a single office holder? And I think that discussion would have gone on to a committee type of presidency, except for one thing, and that was the greatest president this country has produced is sitting in that chair as the president of that were turned into a convention. George Washington sitting in that chair. I can see it when I read the Federalist Papers way back in the day, and you could just sometimes when you're reading something, you can read into some of the emotion and some of the passion that is in the comments, and you can almost feel. I feel like I was there a couple of times in that room, in a sense, because I could feel a little bit of the tension when they got around to Article 2. They put Article 1 to bed, and they put it to bed. And sometimes when they had a bottleneck, they come back to it later on in the discussion. If you read Yates's notes, and you read, of course, the notes of James Madison, and they would come back to it later on because it's too hard to get enough agreement on it. So rather than spend all the time and just simply go back over by having opposite views and nobody would come to an agreement, go on to something else you can agree on and fix the other thing later. And they would come back to it. But you could see in the notes that when they were discussing the executive branch, they were very they were very hesitant to be talking about a committee rather than a single office holder, although you don't have a single office holders in the other two branches of the federal government. But how are you going to constitute the executive branch? And I can see there was a lot of reticence about it because there's the great George Washington, the greatest president this country has produced, sitting in that chair. And everybody knew in that room, they knew that George Washington would be the first president of the United States. And what they were talking about and putting together, how that executive branch would in fact be defined and what it would constitute as far as how many members it would have. Everybody knew that George Washington, that discussion about George Washington and the what's the word here? The amount of confidence, the confidence they had in George Washington. If there's anyone else sitting in that chair, I can tell you right now, you'd have a committee in the executive branch of government. It's because of the son of George Washington in that room that what prevailed in the outcome of setting it up was a single office holder. He is the executive branch of government. Now, I'm going to see what the court did. I hope it was a unanimous voice. I'd hate to read that we got members of the Supreme Court. I got to believe this was a unanimous verdict.
From my understanding, it was.
So I can't see anybody voting against it, John. If they voted against denying, if they voted against and voted for the denial of a person being on the ballot, so the people cannot choose who they would have as the executive office holder of the country when he's a single and unique office holder at that level. One president, one executive office holder who defines Article 2, the executive branch of government. He is the executive branch of government, along with the officially appoints with the approval of the Congress because the check and balance system and this attempt to balance out the power.
I expected Kagan and Sotomayor to actually say something, rule against it. But
John, I would have been very surprised. Even I know that they are way to the left. I would have been surprised even if they had done it. This is so egregious
I was expecting it.
Yeah, I can understand that. This would be so egregious though that you almost have to step down if they had ruled any other way. I'm hoping in my best evaluation of the person running this country, I hope that we don't have any officials that would think that it is okay to tell the American people there are certain people inside of the citizenry who meet all the standards for the presidency in Article 2 of the Constitution that the framers laid down, and to tell the American people that's not good enough, we're going to come behind the framers and do other than what was done by them writing out the document to govern the country. If they say that to me, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get in the airplane and fly over Washington and drop some other than pamphlets over there.
No, well, I expect. I mean, see, I know the Republican Party itself, the GOP, was hoping. I think a large portion of the were hoping that the Supreme Court would have not allowed that. Allowed that. The remove of the Trump from the ballots, because they want something that's more go along to get along kind of person, and Trump wasn't that person.
Yeah, John, you're reading it right. John, you're reading it. Those persons, go back and look at what they did to Donald Trump after Donald Trump won the presidency. First of all, they were not trying to be so gung-ho about his presidential run. They were laughing at it behind his back, thinking he had no shot at winning. But after he won, because of the volume of support the man had, 63 million votes, they couldn't thumb their nose at it. So they had to pretend like, we like this guy. They didn't like Donald Trump. They were hoping Donald Trump would lose. That's why they were so much about not getting behind his campaign. But when he won, look at what they did after he won. 2 years after the election in 2016, they vacated their positions in the House, vacated their majority in the House, and turned the majority over. Talking to you, Paul Ryan, and 36 others, between 36 and 37 others, stepped down, including you over there in California. That came back after your antics didn't work and Trump is still there. You came back in 2020 to reclaim your seat. You know what I'm talking about.
Another thing is too, we had a person on another show from the press from the Does podcast here, and she was claiming that because Donald Trump went through bankruptcy, he was be disqualified automatically from being the president. I was like, okay, congressmen and senators, people who've gotten elected congressmen and senators, were allowed. There's some of them have horrific track records for businesses, and they're allowed to run. The only difference between a congressman, senator, and a presidential candidates, to my knowledge, is the run to straw's chief requirement that is required of a person running for presidents. They have to be natural born.
Right.
Then you can have congressmen and senators who were born in other countries, I believe.
Right, that's true. You're right. You're exactly right. The Constitution lays out the qualifications for president. You can't go behind the framers and change that. I don't think you can even amend that. See, that's another thing we don't understand here. There are certain basic tenets of the Constitution laid down by the framers that are not subject to amendment. Now, I know nobody said that. I don't need their permission, I can tell you.
I think we've allowed too many amendments to our Constitution.
There's some amendments in there that people don't understand. The person that passed this stuff, they don't understand that some things you add to the Constitution that make it constitutional. The question is, if you pass something that neutralizes or abrogates the particulars which the Constitution was in fact drawn up to address, such as limited government, for example, or placing a direct tax on the American people, as does the 16th Amendment, then and also taking away the states' rights to have representatives in the Congress. If you do those things there, you're passing something that's in the Constitution is unconstitutional. I'm telling you, I know a person not going to go along with me on this, but they don't have my background. They don't have my expertise either. And I called them out because I understand where they are and what they're saying. And they're saying it in public, but they're not saying it. They're not going to say it to me, but they say it in public. Some of the things you're saying cannot be contended with based upon what the framers put in place, unless you think you're better than the framers. And the presidential office holder must meet strict conditions that were beknown to the interests of the country based upon the circumstances of that time in 1787 in the 13 colonies. They were concerned. Look in the Constitution and see it. Their number one concern in terms of the office holder of the United States, the president of the United States, since they decided upon a single office holder. And that was that person would not be in that office, nor the others be in those offices, committing, I'm talking about president, vice president, civil officer of the United States, committing treason against this country. That's a major concern that they had. You see that in Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, where they are laying out and defining what they were so concerned about treason. They're in the Constitution is the only crime that is defined in the document. And then when you get to Article 2, Section 4, they're saying here that a president, vice president, all civil officers of the United States shall be removed.
I think we should have, I kind of expect now, kind of half-heartedly hope that there is retaliation against these states to try to remove him from the ballot.
My goodness,
I think there should be on a federal level. You're saying you try to disenfranchise a candidate, like you made the point. The president is the only one we're allowed to vote for as the citizenry as a whole, and try to remove the options we have. When it's supposed, they always ramble on about it's a democracy. It's a democracy. When you deny options to people, that is a very strong element against that thing that you're allegedly supporting.
John, you're making the point that this is authoritarianism. You cannot tell 32 states. I like to have I got to get a list of those states. I want to put that on my bulletin board in my basement. I mean, how do you have 32 states telling their citizens these would be the representatives? It's not the American people. It's the representatives going to take possession of the electoral system, take over the electoral system, and they're going to remand the people to follow that you're not allowed to do this and that to determine who your leaders will be. They may be objectionable to me, but do I have the right to tell the voters, because I find them objectionable, that I want to determine for the voters in the country everywhere in the nation that they don't have a right to speak to those persons on the ballot if they choose otherwise? What is that other than King George III?
Like I said, they are going after, and let's face it, we all know anybody beyond the age of 8, who voted for the first time, sees that there's numbers attached to the ballot. You show ID. To most places, you have to show ID to be able to vote. The ballot number is marked down along with your name, so they know how you voted. Okay, so this anonymous balloting is ridiculous. So we know there's going to be retaliatory efforts if you voted for somebody these leftists didn't like. They want to retaliate. They want to deny you rights. They want to deny you all privileges. They want to take you out of circulation. And I mean, I can see that it's not just paranoia. We've seen this. Their effort right now shows they have every attempt to go even further on that.
Yeah, John, this is some dangerous ground we're on right now. We've been in a danger zone before. We've gone through a number of upheavals in our process. We really have not had, to be honest with you, let's be very frank here, brutally frank. We really have not had what I would call, we think we've had elections that have been very smooth and very stable. What's the other word? Because I use it in an article I wrote today on Facebook. I use a word here. I'm trying to think of that we think we have that we haven't had third world kinds of conditions to prevail. But what I was trying to do today in my Facebook post, I was going back through the elections to show that we've had many upheavals in this country. And this idea that we have had a history, a tradition of the peaceful transfer of power, I don't know how you can contend that with 4 presidents being shot out of office. And then within a 17-day period, September the 5th, 1975, you had Gerald Ford, who there were 2 assassination attempts on Gerald Ford in 1975, within a 17-day period of time on September the 5th of that year. And then 17 days later, on the 22nd, another attempt on his life. And then you had in Reagan's case, Reagan was shot, and you've had 4 presidents assassinated. So this idea that there's been a peaceful transition of power and that we have not had any upheavals in our historical past, as far as the president is concerned, we have had those storms. The first storm was the tumultuous election that was in the election of 1800 between John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson in 1800. And then look at what occurred in 1824 when Andrew Jackson won the election, but then he was stopped from taking office by the electoral shenanigans that occurred, electoral college shenanigans that occurred, that denied him the presidency on March the 4th, 1825. In fact, Andrew Jackson, I put Donald Trump in the same boat with Jackson, because Jackson was elected 3 times and will serve 2 terms. And if Donald Trump wins in November the 5th, put that date on your calendar, we're taking back the country. Put November the 5th on your calendar, because we're coming after the scoundrels that have done these things over the last 3 years, going on 4 years now, to this country. We got to take the country back. We got to take it out of their hands and throw them out of power.
Just like, it's the left, though. The left is like, the left is like, the thing is, they will never able ever to say when they're wrong. They never will.
Yeah, it's true.
They never will. They're so arrogantly convinced of their own righteousness.
That's true.
They can never admit when they're wrong. Did you hear what Rob Reiner, formerly known as Meathead, and Mike Civic, and All the Family? Yeah. He said if Trump wins again, he's going to burn himself up. I would like to encourage his efforts on that. I mean, I'm not going to stop him. I think the man's above the age of 21. He's can make the kind of choice. Maybe we should take up a collection to make sure he could really really carry that out. I'm just joking. But
yeah, I know.
That's absurd.
John, it's amazing. The left throws these temper tantrums.
I know. Like, we're gonna leave. Okay, leave. I don't care. I never ran into you. You never did anything for me. So you got a paycheck for being All the Family. So what do I owe you?
I was reading the comments when Whoopi Goldberg walked off the stage the other day. I don't watch the program, but I read about her walking off, and I was reading the comments. A whole string of comments were made about it. I didn't find one that was saying that she should not make walking off the program as she did permanent. They all would applaud and keep, don't come back. But they think that that's another thing about the left's mentality. They think that their positions are so highly developed that it's their way of the highway, and then if it's the highway, then if it's not their way, then it's a highway, and the highway is always wrong because it's not their way. They think whatever they come up with, any disagreement, is by those who just don't understand the level in which the thinking was determined, the course that the left has set. Yet the left has very seldom been right in the history of the country.
Well, it's like,
it's like, amazing. They think that they're right in what they're doing now.
Okay, and the thing is too, if you want to look at it this way, and I just came to me where you're talking about this, is that the left are always like, temper tantrum, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do something horrific, like burn yourself up, like Rob Reiner, right? They're actually trying to appeal to the sensibilities of decency and honor that and on respect of human life to on those on the right or those who oppose them, because not necessarily everybody who opposes the left is right. On the right, they just say, I don't think you're really correct about this. But anyway, they're really presupposing some decency that they themselves don't possess. Because I was seeing them calling for the butchery of Donald Trump, like that Joy Behar, or that the other woman, what was her other comedian, had a severed head looking like Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I mean, my God, we're supposed to, we're so afraid of, we're supposed to be so fearful that Rob Reiner wants to actually carry through with this if Trump is reelected. We're not going to vote for Donald Trump because we don't want to see Rob Reiner do themselves in like that. Well, the left doesn't have such scruple. They don't. They're without scruple.
It's amazing that they would pretend that they are the keepers. If you say the keepers of the framers' vision, they are the the negation of the vision of the framers. The framers had very clear understandings of what they were trying to accomplish at the Constitutional Convention. That's why they stayed there from May, well, when it started officially May the 14th of the 1787, with the real deliberations, in my view, starting on the 25th of May and lasting until the 17th of September. So that period from May 25th to 17th of September of 1787, the framers were in that room, and they weren't in that room twiddling their thumb. They were in that room doing some serious thinking. You can read comments made by Wilson. It's not just Madison in there. Madison doing a lot of it, but Wilson's doing some of it. And there's a person after whom they've named this university, George Mason, is a major contributor. Mason is one of the three persons that were there at the end that was still dissatisfied with the document as it was finalized, and he's one of the three persons of the 42 that was still there at the end that refused to sign the document. There were 55 that showed up eventually over time in Philadelphia, but at the end of it, some of them had become distraught and didn't think that the particulars were to their liking or to the calling for which they had been put on board to go there and represent. A lot of what was going on was not the intent of those that had been sent there. Some of them left out of frustration. But at the end, 42 of them were there, and three of the 42 didn't sign. 39 signed it at the end, but three of them that were there at the end didn't sign. And but the point I'm trying to make here is that there was very meticulous going over with a fine-tooth comb what was being put in place here. You know, I tell you another thing here too, to be something to be very proud of. This was such a difficult task to do this from scratch, because let's understand something here, that what they did in that room, you know, putting that republic together, if you can keep it, that had never been done before. There was no document that could copy and say that they're going to do it this way and that way. The separation of powers idea. They had these are new ways of doing government, setting up the terms in which it will in fact operate at the outset, at the very commencement of the government. That's something that had never been done before. To plan it out ahead of time, to understand, number one, fundamentally, power must be chained down by the document. And so that, how do you do that? Okay, well, they do that through the separation of powers and the check and balance system, and the allocation of power on two different levels, the federal and the state level, with an allocation of power on the federal level specific to that particular level where power will operate, and that power coming from the states that are jealous of the allocation, but specifically laying out what are those powers. And so the powers on two different levels, another part of the check and balance system, we don't talk about that, but that's what the framers had in mind. We should not, for light and transient reasons, go back into a document that's copied all over the world. And I tell you what the world is doing. The world doesn't have the wherewithal, certainly not today. You wouldn't have it today in this country. They don't have the wherewithal to sit there in that room and have these minds putting together a constitution. That's why they copy the document. This is difficult work here.
Well, like, yeah, look at most of the legislation. We have people we hire to be lawmakers, but the bills they introduce to become laws are not written by them. They're written by, and they don't even read the damn things. So, I mean, like, you know, back during the healthcare bill during the time for Obama, you know, John Connors mock anybody, ask anybody, yeah, like, do we read? That's a 3,000 page stuff. If you're not reading it, why are you pushing it?
Yeah.
Pelosi, you got to pass it before you read it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I don't want to put any power in the hands of these people and have them do anything they have to do with changing what the framers did, because they are not on that level. And they should, and this idea, it's really offensive when you think about it, that 30-some states, this is very offensive. some states, I don't care if it's just one state is too many. They want to take the bull by the horn and tell the American people who they can vote for that meets the constitutional requirement for the office, but they'll come behind the framers and say that we're going to go beyond what the framers did, and we're going to do something different here. And and Trump has been accused, not the man hasn't even been charged.
I'd like to bring this up too, and I'd like to put this out there who those might be on the left watching. Okay, you don't like Donald Trump, other than he has orange hair, and you want to make about Orange Man being bad. What things that you even accuse him of that your own politician, you put from your own political ilk, haven't also done themselves? Bill Clinton was a serial adulterer. Bill Clinton was a partier. He was using illegal substances and all this, which has been proven. He admitted to it. Okay, what other opposition? You're trying to cast aspersions and say he's disqualified. Trump is disqualified for running. That your own leadership or your own people, they didn't possess in spades. I mean, you're trying to say he was immoral because he's had married so many times. Which one of you guys haven't been? I mean, Bill and Hillary Clinton, they had an arrangement. Otherwise, if it was a decent or a normal relationship, they've been divorced long ago because of his philandering.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't understand where the moral high ground they think they're coming from.
Or to even expect, we're not electing every 4 years a pope. And we're not talking about sainthood here. I don't expect our politicians to be saints. I expect them to be lawful. I expect them to respect the framers of this country and what they put in place, and they follow the Constitution of the United States. They put their hand in the Bible and swear to uphold the document. They don't swear that they're not going to be in some other brothel or the kind of things that they impeached Clinton for, which that, by the way, they have the right to do that because unbeknownst to these scholars, there's nothing in the Constitution that specifies what is an impeachable offense. I know they're going to disagree with me on this. They're not going to call me to disagree with me on it because they're not that argument. I know what they're saying on TV. You can say these things on television. You're not going to say those things to me and I get challenged on it because I know you can't point to it. I'm going to ask you to point to the specific reference place where that stuff, what you're saying is found. It's not found anywhere. It's found in your mouth, found in your head. It's not found in the document. There's no specification for what impeachment requires other than majority vote in the House of Representatives.
They might not like the color of their tie, and they could probably find a way of impeaching. I mean, I hate to say it could be that arbitrarily, but that's the way the wording is.
Yeah, but here's the brilliance of the framers again. You see, they can impeach the president, but the balance is in both houses to impeach in the House of Representatives. But they're not the ones doing the trial. Look at what the framers did here. They're not the ones doing the trial. They can do the one part. They cannot complete the process. No matter how biased the impeachment was, it has to be referred to the Senate for trial. And when it's referred to the Senate for trial, there are specific conditions laid out. Alan Dershowitz, are you listening? There are specific conditions laid out that specify what then you need for the next level. He's already been impeached. That's what Lawrence Tribe's is already been impeached in the House. Tribe says that he hasn't been impeached until it's referred to the Senate for trial. That's nonsense. He's been impeached in the House. Otherwise, there's nothing to refer to. If the president has not been impeached, Lawrence Tribe, there's nothing to refer to the Senate. See, these things are these. I don't know. This training that is not training. That's somebody making stuff up. The framers put in place different things for different reasons, and impeachment is in the House. But they were smart enough to know if you put both of the processes of the impeachment process in the House, then the bias that brought about the impeachment will be the bias then that stands around and waits for the conviction based upon what they themselves found egregious enough to bring about impeachment. They didn't do that. They wanted to have the trial held in the other body with the House members coming over to the Senate to explain what it is that they did. Brilliant. And then they have to defend it, as they recently did. And that's why I'm surprised that Alan Dershowitz did not change his statement about you need to have treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors in order to bring about impeachment, when that was not the case in one of the and when he was defending Trump against in the trial of impeachment. The first one that he had, Trump was impeached twice, the only president to be impeached twice. He defended Donald Trump in the first impeachment. In the second impeachment, I don't know how that could have flown, because the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court didn't even show up for it. Roberts was saying they're going to waste his time again with this political nonsense. So in the second impeachment trial that they had, the Chief Justice didn't even show up, and that was, if it had been serious, that would have been mandatory by the Constitution, because it says when the president's on trial, then the person that sits over the trial is different for the president. That's how. See, that's why this is so profane of what they did. The president, because of the statute of the office, there's a requirement for the president, the single officer in the executive branch of government, the head of the, they're the office holders, because the president will appoint his cabinet and he will have a vice president. But the executive branch of government is the president of the United States. There's nobody that's why so much these cases against Trump are unconstitutional. Jack Smith's position is unconstitutional. You can't have look, folks. Take my word for this one. You cannot have a person prosecuting the president that's appointed by the DOJ that bypasses the Congress, which is what they did. They put Jack Smith up there, got him from the street somewhere. He had a job somewhere else. Brought him over because he's good in running over people's rights. That's why they put him there. And they're going to have the secretary, the Department of Justice, if you can call it Department of Injustice, going to appoint, Mary Garland is going to appoint Jack Smith to go after Trump, and there's no check and balance. There's no approval of the office appointment by the Congress. This man going out willy-nilly. His one job is to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't succeed in his bid to become president of the United States again in 2024, November the 5th of this year. Write that down. That's what they're doing. They're trying to keep the man from running. They got a real dilemma on their hand. It's a real dilemma here. Read my post today on Facebook. I'm very proud of that post. That was I'm bragging here, one of my more brilliant posts. I think I went into a lot of things there: the history, the Constitution, the combination of the two, and trying to put out there into left field where they are, the things they're doing. So if they are not aware that it's unconstitutional, lay out in front of them that it's unconstitutional so they can change course. Although I don't think it will change, they'll change course because they don't care anything about this document. They don't care about the framers. They don't care anything about the country. and nor the people in the country. If that were the case, it would not be sicking unvetted foreigners on the people in this country. All this unvetted immigration is an indication of their disrespect, contempt, even hatred of the American people. Because if they had any respect for them, they would not bring in people that are dangerous to them. And it's like what Ben Carson said: if you have all these persons coming in this country and not been vetted, and there are no terrorists coming here amongst them, then that would be terrorism malpractice.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they require U.S. citizens when they go through, try to attempt to travel through the airports to go get their body orifices examined.
Mhm.
But now we can let these people just wave them in, coming in with all kinds of backpacks. So what the hell's that about?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not supposed to be concerned about, if we had any opposition that we're racist and xenophobic, right?
Yeah, John, this is amazing that what is happening in this country. We have got to stand up. We're backed into a wall, right? We're backed up against the wall right now. We've got to stand up in this country. We've got to have the American people to understand the gravity of the moment. And we got to stand up as one. I know they divided us up, this group over here, that group over there, one over here, one back in the other direction. They've done all that to keep the people divided and fighting among themselves. I'll tell you this, the moment is now. The American people are going to have to unite. All that created friction among the American people on race, on gender, on class, rich and poor and all of the rest of it, skin color, all these things that keep people divided. This is no time to be going into these what's that word they use, where they have these communities of interest. This group over here has this interest, and over here there's another interest that counters it, and they are at war with each other because they don't agree with each other on something they feel is fundamental. There's nothing more fundamental than the country remaining standing and not going out of existence. I mean, we've done pretty good here in terms of this experiment is going on, has passed its 200th birthday and going toward a third century. That's pretty good for a republic.
I'd like to know the thing too. Remember years ago, back in the Clinton era, there's the term tyranny of the majority. Tyrants have always been in the minority. And it seems like we're trying to do that now. We're allowing all these potential tyrants to come forward and tell us, the rest of us, how we're supposed to live our existence.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting juxtapositioning, because then they also claim, so the same people are so scattered because they're always saying we want democracy, more democracy, but yet they want minorities to control a minority, like a political minority, to run the power. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to see the day come when we have more respect for how the framers dealt with that issue of tyranny. You could go read Federalist Papers 9 and 10, 9 written by Alexander Hamilton, who anybody's surprised at that because Hamilton wrote 51 of them, and 10 written by James Madison, which is the taking the view of Hamilton and developing it a bit further in 10. And what they did, they didn't call it, they call it factions, how to deal with factions. And 10 brilliantly handles majority factions. It's a brilliant, probably the most brilliant of the Federalist Papers is number 10.
From Hamilton, you said?
No. 10 is James Madison. 9 is Hamilton.
Oh, so I know that they had that, the Broadway musical thing, or a play called, Hamilton, and and it was like basically the left loved it because he was for a large government. So
yeah, that's right, John. You're picking it up. See, that's why. See, you're not going to have a play. You're not going to have a play on James Madison. No, they're going to do Hamilton. They're going to do Hamilton. Hamilton was in a lot of ways, Hamilton was anti-democratic. And they celebrate that because the left is anti-democratic. And yeah, you're right. It's interesting you picked it up, John, not too many people understand why Hamilton was on Broadway. They put Hamilton on Broadway.
He wanted to establish a central bank from the onset. He was met with
it.
resistance, and right there, the Federal Reserve, the federal central banks are the reason why they've gotten away with to screwing the American people over for generations now. And and that's what we considered as par for the course. What it didn't, it certainly goes the opposite direction what the founders wanted.
Yeah, you got it right this time, members of the Supreme Court. You got it right. The framers would be proud of what occurred in terms of your deliberations, because there's no way in the world you can read the Constitution of the United States and say that it remands them as representatives to tell the people that they can't have representatives.
I wonder what I would love to, this is the what if machine, because she's obviously no longer with us. Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Mm-hmm.
I would think she would probably be vehemently foaming at the mouth and trying to write something, but that's just she might have gone and said, this, I can't rule in favor of this, or say, I can't rule against this because, let's face it, removing people from ballots is not something we should permit. I mean, I don't know, but I just want the people who are RGB's fans, let me know how you think should weigh in if you're listening.
That'd be interesting, John, to find out. It'd be interesting to watch the American people and the comments they're making. I'm going to be going online once this program is over and watching and reading what people have said about that ruling. It just was made recently, so I want to see what the responses are to it. But the Supreme Court has it absolutely right. I would be very proud of the Supreme Court for having done this work. This is exactly what the framers had in mind. Otherwise, they would not have laid out what are the criteria for the executive office holder. They were very particular about that. They knew that it had to be a person that was loyal to the country. That's why they said you had to be a natural born citizen. That was they knew we couldn't have a person in there born elsewhere and then being in the presidency, because their loyalties would be elsewhere. They could be in the country also, but there would be loyalties elsewhere too. They didn't want to have loyalties elsewhere. They wanted a person that was strictly loyal to the laws of the land of the United States and carrying those laws out and making sure, as the president of the United States, he is the person that's enforcing the laws of this country, not Ukraine's country. And so they made that a criteria: naturally born, not foreign born and then naturalized. That's a different way you can become a citizen. But no, they wanted the person born. What's that song by Born in the USA? Yeah, born in the USA. Born in the USA. And they wanted a person that had been seasoned, 35 years of age. That's 5 years more than it would take for a person to be a senator. A senator has to be 30 years old. A member of the House, 25. And so it's interesting that they're coming behind the framers and trying to say that they made a mistake. They didn't make a mistake. They were very meticulous about what it was that they felt would secure the nation's freedom. And that was someone born here, not born with different loyalties, so that he have loyalties in different parts of the world, but naturally born in the United States, 35 years old, and 14 years a resident of the country. Because you can be born here and be abroad where you are no longer, quote unquote, situated within the culture of the United States. You've been over there with France, speaking French, and maybe have lost some of the grounding points of the country and so on. So they didn't want to have that happen either. But they were very specific in the conditions they laid out for the president. And they have anyone telling us that we have to have some additional requirements that you got to go along with what they believe the president should say and stand for. That's very dangerous, and that would be a slap in the face of the framers. They laid down the law. Anyway, Supreme Court, you got it right, and we want to commend you here at the studio, because this is the kind of ruling we want to have and must have if we're going to have this country for another how many years we've been here, and be a republic that break the record of all republics that have gone out of existence because of the kind of stuff that they're doing in these states. Can't have it. Okay. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.